Five.
All right. We are live on Inside Music Curation. And today we're going to be talking about culture and music and sonic branding. This is my first time on the show. My name is Chris Schreiber. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Feed Media Group and want to participate because we're talking about branding, obviously. Does everyone want to do a quick introduction? I think there's maybe some new participants as well.
Sure. So I'm Tiffany Siriclovadana. I head up customer success. I think this is my second time on a IMC call.
Yeah, well, welcome back, Tiffany. Eric Stensvog, and I am the Director of Curation here and excited to be here to talk to you all about this today. I know we're going to have a lively conversation.
And I'm Claire McConnell. I'm a Senior Curator.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot going on in the news these days on a lot of levels, but a lot going on in music. And so we've been sort of reflecting on sort of the different storylines recently and thinking, taking a step back, like what is sonic branding really all about? What is the strategy to develop a really good sonic brand, and how do we take sort of some of the current events and juxtapose it with the various sort of decisions you have to make as a brand? And so wanted to start off with just kind of like a technical definition of sonic branding. I've been working in marketing for, almost a couple of decades now. I have to say that I have not used the term sonic branding a ton, though I've experienced it a lot. So this has been an interesting sort of research dive. So as a technical definition, in short, sonic branding is the sound of your brand. Sonic branding refers to the sounds or songs associated with a brand, product, or service. It's developed or adopted by the brand as part of an intentional strategy that helps its audience associate those sounds with the brand. So historically, most of the things you're going to read about sonic branding, you're going to see examples of like McDonald's jingle, "I'm loving it," or the Netflix's "To Dumb" sound, or a lot of other, successful and unsuccessful sort of brand jingles. And that's not what we're going to be talking about today. This is a show about music curation. And we wanted to come out from the angle of where does curation fit into the overall sort of sonic brand strategy? So there's a lot of decisions that our team is making every day to decide what music are we going to choose to go with our customers' content. And there's a lot of art and science that goes into that, but ultimately you're having a brand experience anytime you watch any of that content from our customers. And there's a lot of thought that goes in to discussions with the companies we work with about what are your brand values, what's your brand promise, what's sort of the fundamentals of your brand. And those actually help us guide a lot of our curation decisions. So we wanted to kind of kick it off there and just talk about the mechanics of that. And so I'm going to pass the mic over to Tiffany, who really works closest with our customers, and just ask, what are the types of information that you collect from our customers to help kind of define their brand for our curation team?
Thanks, Chris. So we start obviously by learning a lot about our customers, what they've already done, if their brand's been around for a while, and how they position themselves out in the market. And that's everything from whether they've done commercials, TikTok, social media, Instagram, and then look at their content itself to really get a big picture of where they currently are in the space, and then help them take it a step further with the music. Knowing a lot about who they are, what their values are, and then who their end users are really help us formulate that sonic identity. And then once we get that information, the user demographics, we pass that along to our curation team, who Stens and Claire are both on. They have the expertise to, one, really hone in and finesse what the music experience should be, could be, with what customers are already doing. So I'll let Stens and Claire speak to that.
Yeah, and so and Tiffany and I have worked together for quite a while, so we have a really great working relationship where she does kind of the heavy lifting as far as trying to understand what the brand is about fundamentally, and as much about the end users as we possibly can get. All that information is mission critical for setting the appropriate curation target. I've occasionally told people when they say how lucky I am to have this job, which I am dead lucky, that yeah, because it allows me to regularly draw upon my lifelong knowledge of music, my obsession for knowing what's going on in music right now today, and very, very occasionally, but not frequently, my taste in music. Because in terms of being a business or a curator for businesses, I need to be taste agnostic, and that's really important. And Claire knows that, and every one of our curators knows that, is that we're matchmakers to the tastes of our end users, to the brands and the specific needs that they have. So we all have a general knowledge of music so that we can be as effective as possible at matchmaking that from the broad world of music. So just to kind of like setting the framework of it is that, curation is not really, business curation is not sitting here and saying like, these are the songs that I think are great and you're going to listen to them. No, au contraire. It's, I need to understand the end user. And so I'll often follow up Tiffany's legwork to try to get, kind of lasered in more of, are there any specific artists that seem to represent the brand's vibe, or any that your end users prefer? We work with a lot of fitness companies, so they're already in the business of soundtracking workouts. Well, like which artists do your audiences love? Like I need to know those. That's great. That's going to get me going in the right direction. And then, one other point, and then I'll ask Claire to add any extra color and perspective, but we sometimes need to gently and respectfully push back too with our customers of like, your brand, your end users, but we know contextually how music is curated across the board for different sectors, including fitness and retail and some other verticals. So even though you want your brand to be edgy, and indeed your brand may be very edgy, and we've had this case at least one time, you may or may not want your hip hop station to be literally all clean, or excuse me, literally all original explicit versions of the tracks. And, in at least one example of a customer, a really amazing customer that we highly respect, they said, no, we're going to go full bore on this, completely edgy, all, original versions of hip hop songs. Okay, here you go. And within a few days later, they were kind of walking it back like, ooh, we've been receiving some user feedback that this is a little too edgy. Is there any chance that we could use some censored versions? So we also try to, we're not just order takers, we're partners, we're collaborators. We take sometimes, partial information, and then we're able to flesh it out more fully with the broader expertise that we bring. Claire, do you have anything to add to that from your role here and elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a good point about it being collaborative a lot of the time of you want it to, feel like a joint venture. Obviously as a company, you have a stake in making sure your customers are happy and perceived in that way as well. So
I also want to chime in real quick along with what Sten shared. These guys are the experts. We have a whole team in addition to the two on the screen today. We have a whole team who can provide so much better guidance about very specific genre niches in those genres. But they also have a really current pulse on the news of the world and pop culture. And I think bringing forth kind of that knowledge, keeping track on what's going on in society, that helps also our customers with their branding, not only in their music and their stations that we serve up for their users, but in their social media platforms, in their marketing materials. It kind of runs the brand across the board.
Awesome. We were talking before, about examples of where companies gave us sort of a direction for the brand that we started to go down the path on curation for, and then learned actually maybe it wasn't quite the right path for them. Do you want to go into that story, Tiffany?
Yeah, so Sten's alluded to it already. We respect what our customers are doing, and we obviously want to help enhance the musical experience. But we've seen it all. We've seen small companies grow into large companies and go viral. We've seen companies and customers work with artists themselves, and we want to help facilitate that. So we, like we said, we'll We provide guidance. We take their recommendations, suggestions, but the team of experts that we have here will really help finesse that. The example Sten shared was, yes, someone went full on explicit in a station. Now, can you imagine working out to a hip hop station for the next 30 minutes and every song drops a few curse words in there? It's a bit too much. So, with our guidance, we were able to scale that back. There are, of course, some songs, in the catalog that everyone knows there's going to be a curse word or two, but it's expected for that track. It's a popular song. We will keep it in there out of respect for the artist and the tone of the station. But we do like to find that balance and help our customers find that balance. We do seek clean or censored versions of tracks if that will help, again, retain kind of the mood and tone of the song and station. But we do our best here, again, to really ensure the music that that our customers' end users are hearing reflects what the instructor leading the workout and what our customer wants to present.
Yeah, I really like that story just because I can empathize on the marketer and branding side. I'll say it's not easy to define a brand. It's not an exact science. And even though you can have sort of definition of brand values that are partially right, you often learn the hard way which part of it you haven't fully defined or you haven't fully gotten right. And so, like in that example, it's totally logical that you had internal discussions say, like, this is about being edgy, this is about pushing the envelope. Logically, the music we should select should represent that. And explicit, non-explicit, we hadn't really talked through that part, but it seems like we should go with the edgy version of that decision tree and then put it out in market. And that's when you come to realize, like, actually we hadn't fully defined the brand here. We are edgy but not explicit. Right. And the outcome of that is a more developed brand guide, right? But it's not easy, and a lot of times disconnects come from misalignment internally. A lot of times there's sort of people in my position that are making big decisions that will represent the whole brand, but they're not necessarily talking to everyone at the company to make that decision. It's just not feasible in a business context. So a lot of the work of marketing and branding is getting enough of a sense of direction, getting enough buy-in for a strategy to go out and try things. And sometimes you nail it and you sort of live within the vision that you had, and sometimes you realize, like, that was not completely correct.
There's also times, Chris, where we know who the end user is. We know who our customer is targeting. It's the person working out to whatever content that they have, but they're casting it up on their big screen TV in the living room with their toddlers on the floor playing in the corner. So while it's not directly in someone's ear, where that person may be more open to kind of that edgier sound, it's not broadcast to anyone in the room. So keeping that in mind, how is this presented not only to the person you're targeting, but potentially anyone else who might be hearing it, might be exposed to it. Like, how does that come into play? So we take a look at kind of the whole user experience, and sometimes the user is not just the person who's paying for the subscription. So a lot of considerations there.
No, that's right on. Well, to that point about how you can be defined in some ways by your audience and the users of your brand, let's talk about, like, the news of the day. So there's been a number of big artist controversies over the last year that has, in very real ways impacted the decisions that this team makes, and sort of lots of people that are using music to create their sonic identity and sonic brand. So maybe Claire, talk us through sort of how you've navigated some of the artist controversies and how you sort of work with customers to make decisions on what stays and what goes for music selections.
Sure. For context, as curators and as customer experience people, part of our job is to stay attuned to what's going on in the world, beyond just what's on the Billboard charts, but really being aware of the cultural context surrounding music as well. When musicians especially start making headlines for not so great reasons, it's something we know to be sensitive to. In my previous experience, From a like company perspective, there's usually, two reasons to, maybe wanting to distance yourself from a certain artist. The first is, sort of the optics of it, of not aligning with your own brand values. And then the other side is sort of the potential financial impact that your interaction with that person can have further down the line. And I think consumers are very much aware of the sort of principle of voting with your wallet, and that where your money goes means something about like you and your values. And I think that's why it's important for, on behalf of their users and customers, for companies to be sensitive to what is going on in the world, and how their user base might feel about that.
Yeah, and then we take that information that Claire and the Curation team pulled together. They gather as much information as possible, what you see in the news, and track how society as a whole is responding to it, other companies and brands, what general radio is doing as well. And then we take that information and we share it with our customers so that way they can make an informed decision. Some of them may already know about it, some have their own pulse on that as well, so that's great. And then we make a decision together from that point, whether it's to just put a pause on it for the time being, see how things play out, or if it's up to the customer if they want to remove it from their station. So we want to be the ones who are able to, again, help guide them and make sure that they are the ones making proper and informed decisions for their own business and branding.
Yeah, we're kind of, everything is totally relevant to the way that we look at curation and culture, and that we can't be effective with representing company brands if we're not aware of the culture. We have to be sensitive, attuned, nimble, adaptable. If we put our heads in the ground that way, it's a disservice to our to the customers. Tiffany, I would love, if you will, even though it's a sensitive topic, and we're kind of dancing around Kanye West, because Kanye West's been in the headlines a lot lately. We've been talking about him a lot internally and grappling with this, but we have had experiences like this in the past. Would you be willing to briefly talk about R. Kelly in 2018?
Yeah,
some of the ways we
definitely. So 2018 was a big push for the Me Too movement and the release of R. Kelly's that Lifetime documentary. Along with that came, if you guys know, this is all public information. Along came some criminal convictions, a trial, all that stuff in the news. So as a company, we presented that information to our customers with the recommendation to put a pause on adding any R. Kelly songs to their stations. We still left it up to the customer. If they wanted us to keep them in there, we did. But again, providing them with that information to make that informed decision and take a stance was how we addressed it. No one pushed back on it. A lot of customers actually appreciated the messaging. They also not only took it so far as to removing the songs from their stations, but again, presenting on social media that they were in support of the Me Too movement. So it's nice to see our customers, again, take that stance and support a good cause. And we do that with every incident. We gather that information. We did the same thing, I think a year or so later with Chris Brown when there was an accusation. We presented all that information to our customers, and some of them made their own decisions into, let's remove him for the time being. When the accusations were dropped, many customers said, go ahead and put him back in. So again, keeping up to date and keeping our customers up to date has really helped, help formulate, kind of have that conversation across the board. And I think that's a topic for actually another maybe Inside Music Curation. But yeah, I mean, we find ourselves back here again with Kanye. So
yeah, and with Mr. West, we really obviously things came to a head about a month ago with some of the hate speech that he publicized on Twitter, and then it's continued and he's doubled down. And we proactively, and the nuances here are critical. They're absolutely critical, and we're very attuned and aware to them of behavioral, criminal behavioral accusations versus criminal behavioral prosecutions versus speech or things people have said. And so we have to really contextually think about all these different things. But we as a company don't condone hate speech in any way, shape, or form. But we also we serve the needs of our business customers, and so we wanted to proactively reach out to them because all this was happening in the news. Again, we have to proactively be good ambassadors to them of saying, hey, we have the ability to take Kanye West out of your programs if you would like, or to at least discontinue programming his very, very popular and majorly programmed music. I mean, we're not talking about a small thing here. A lot of these are pop juggernauts for the last 20 years, but we reached out through our CX team of, how do you want us to behave, right? We are here for you. And so, and look, we as curators and as individuals, we have personal preferences too, of course. And I'm a longtime Kanye West fan. So this is upsetting to me on a level of business-wide implications and personally. I've written a blog article that I'm proud of from a year ago about his best deep cuts. But the business decision now, obviously, is we need to reach out and say, hey, what's going on with regard to his public persona and his behavior? Anti-Semitic commentary is very upsetting and concerning. We're concerned. What would you like us to do? And we'll do that as expeditiously as we possibly can. And many of our customers said, yeah, I think we need to take a break from Mr. West, as has so much of the business world and other people saying, there is a line here and you've crossed it. And so, we're in the business to provide those services to our customers in an adaptable nature, which is why none of our music stations and curation is static and fixed in granite. It's always growing and changing and being rearranged.
Yeah, and we're reacting in real time with what's going on in the world. So, I think, news travels fast, information travels fast, things change on a daily basis. So we'll continue to monitor this and, again, keep our customers informed. And as soon as they want to pull whatever direction they want to go in, we'll implement that for them.
Great. Well, I think this has been an awesome discussion. I think hearing this last bit coming from the sort of marketer standpoint, this, I think, would, no pun intended, be music to your ears as a brand marketer who's, you can define the brand, but then there's all these unknowns. You go off with your partners to deal with the world as it is and what comes. And so hearing these stories, it's not necessarily something you'd think about when you're first creating a content strategy, but it becomes really real. And I think same is true for, going into the business of music curation. You're not necessarily thinking about it as your role to be on top of current events and having hard conversations with clients about different artist stories. But the reality is, here we are. So I think, this has been a really, really interesting, a real conversation about this. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be a part of more of these in the future. And
thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.